Officially, Area 51 doesn't exist. Not on a single public map, not in a tax record, not in 60 years of government paperwork. But the story of what actually happened out there in the Nevada desert is stranger than anything the conspiracy forums ever came up with, and it starts with a plane that has no name. Every week, a Boeing 737 takes off from a quiet corner of Las Vegas airport with no airline logo on its fuselage. Workers call it Janet. There's no public schedule, no ticket counter, no departure board. Employees board it, fly north into empty desert, and land somewhere that isn't supposed to exist. Many of them were never allowed to tell their own spouses what waited for them on the other end. Not the project, not the building, not even the general shape of what they built during the day. The base itself sits behind a fence line that isn't patrolled by soldiers. It's watched by private contractors driving unmarked white pickup trucks that locals in the nearby town of Rachel simply call the Camo Dudes. The signs bolted to that fence say, in plain writing, that deadly force is authorized against anyone who crosses it. No warning shot required, just a stretch of gravel road, a painted orange post, and men on the ridgeline who are legally allowed to shoot first. This kind of secrecy wasn't new. It was already being tested, brutally, 5 years after the base was built. In 1960, a U-2 spy plane launched from that same runway was shot down deep over Soviet territory. The pilot, Gary Powers, survived the crash, was captured, and within days was sitting in front of Soviet television cameras. Washington's first move was to lie. Officials told the world it was a weather research aircraft that had simply drifted off course. That story held for exactly as long as it took Moscow to produce the twisted wreckage and the very much alive pilot on live broadcast, and the lie fell apart in front of the entire planet, in real time, on camera. None of that would have been possible without the ground it happened on. Back in 1955, the CIA quietly bought up thousands of acres around a dry lake bed called Groom Lake, and from that year forward, official maps simply stopped drawing anything there. A blank patch, left that way on purpose, decade after decade, while pilots based there were given a standing order never to fly directly over Rachel, so the handful of residents 25 miles away wouldn't have anything worth mentioning at dinner. And that emptiness fed the strangest part of the whole story. Through the late 1950s and 60s, commercial pilots and ordinary people across the Southwest kept reporting the same thing: fast silver aircraft flying at altitudes nothing else could reach, catching sunlight in ways that made them glow against a darkening sky. A U-2 at 70,000 feet, lit by a sun that had already set on the ground below, looks for all the world like a hovering silver disk to someone standing in a backyard. Air traffic controllers logged it. Newspapers ran it. Almost nobody outside a tiny circle of engineers had any idea these aircraft were real. Former CIA historian Gregory Pedlow eventually documented just how deliberate that silence was, writing that roughly half of all UFO sightings recorded during that era traced directly back to classified test flights out of that runway. The Air Force didn't just fail to correct the alien rumors, it let them spread on purpose because a public convinced of flying saucers asked far fewer questions than one that suspected a secret spy plane program aimed at the Soviets. The silence held for almost 60 years until a Freedom of Information Act request finally cracked it open in 2013. The CIA released an internal history of the U-2 program, and for the first time in an actual government document, the words Area 51 appeared in print. Not a confirmation of anything extraterrestrial, just a runway, a testing site, and decades of aircraft that had been sitting in plain sight the entire time, hidden behind nothing more than a refusal to speak. Even that admission left something unresolved. Workers were made to sign non-disclosure agreements that, according to some former employees, carried no expiration date at all, holding long after retirement. And when former workers later tried to sue over illegal chemical burn pits and the health problems that followed, the case never reached a jury. The government invoked a rarely used state secrets privilege to block it entirely, sealing the evidence rather than letting a courtroom see it. So no, Area 51 was never about aliens. It was about how far an entire government was willing to go to protect a technological edge, how easily a cover story becomes indistinguishable from an outright lie once enough time passes, and how a blank, unlabeled stretch of desert became one of the most talked about places on Earth by admitting almost nothing at all. It doesn't officially exist. You already know that isn't true.